What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of GameScript. Going to be looking at the San Francisco 49ers versus the Detroit Lions in this one, and it's a potential barn burner, but there are some matchups that stand out, which might help us whittle down our player pool, or at least help us decide which players that we're going to have more exposure to, and I'll get into it right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at PumaCom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching GameScript. This episode, we're going to be looking at Monday Night Football. We got the San Francisco 49ers versus the Detroit Lions. It's a 50.5-point total with San Francisco as 3.5-point dogs in this one. They are playing in San Francisco, and it's was supposed to originally be a matchup for all sorts of playoff implications. San Francisco has been eliminated from the playoffs, though. Detroit is fighting for the number one seed in the conference. And I think their season comes down to their game next week with Minnesota, no matter what. But the Lions do not want to lose this game to San Francisco, a team that beat them in the playoffs last year and kind of squashed their Super Bowl hopes. So a lot on the line for Detroit, and San Francisco is going for pride in this one, and it should be a fun game, a huge total with that 50.5-point total. Not really sure if it's going to hit that total. It could go under the way that San Francisco's offense has been playing lately, and the situation with Detroit and some of the matchups that they have against this San Francisco defense that doesn't really play to their strengths. So let's take a look at the player pool. Before we do that, make sure to hit the like button. Looking for 30 likes so I can put the favorite plays in the comment section. If you check the comment section for the Sunday night showdown show, I had Chris Rodriguez and I had Zach Ertz both in that comment section. Both those guys had big nights. Chris Rodriguez, 1% owned, ended up scoring a touchdown. He didn't get, at least in the contest that I was in, I didn't see him at the top of the leaderboard in those lineups, but I wasn't in the big DraftKings one tonight, so maybe he got in there. But Zach Ertz ended up with 2 touchdowns on top of that. So, pretty good night for the showdown picks, even though I completely blew it with the game script. I had Washington winning in a blowout situation, so none of my lineups cashed, but I did get a couple good picks in there. So hopefully other people were able to benefit from that. So let's dig into this player pool. All right, so let's take a look first at the injury report because that's going to be significant for this game. Both these teams are super banged up. We'll start with the 49ers. Looking at Brandon Ayuk, obviously on IR still. So is Christian McCaffrey. Those guys are done for the season and played a big role in why the 49ers did not make the playoffs. We got left tackle Spencer Burford is out. Trent Williams, another left tackle, one of the best players in the league. He's on IR now. That's going to be rough for this offense. Feliciano is on IR. Aaron Banks is out. Bunch of guys on IR. If you look over at the defense, the one good thing is Nick Bosa is healthy this week. We're still looking at Dre Greenlaw out. Shavarius Ward, this is a significant one. He is out. And we got a bunch of other guys that are out on IR or suspended. Like basically half their defense is done, not in this game. So that's pretty significant for the 49ers. As far as the Detroit side, we're looking at David Montgomery, who is out. probably until the playoffs. If they can make it a couple rounds into the playoffs, then we might see David Montgomery again. Khalif Raymond is on IR. Antoine Green, I'm not really sure who he is anyways. Like, the defense just decimated. Their entire defense has been decimated. Some of the highlights of that: Aiden Hutchinson, he's been on IR for a while now. We got Rakestraw on IR. Carlton Davis is even on IR. Derek Barnes, Alex Anzalone is on IR, and that's significant for the Kittle matchup in this game. Malcolm Rodriguez is on IR. Just all sorts of guys on IR. Some big names on there, and some big parts of their defense, which were helping them to have a lot of success throughout this season, are going to be out for this one, making it very tough for Detroit not only to win this game, but to advance very far in the playoffs. They're going to have to rely on that offense like they have been for the most part this season. The offense has been, like just a complete loaded with firepower and winning their games. But with no Detroit defense backing them, like not the solid defense that we've seen all season, then it's going to be tough for them to be a complete team and to advance through the playoffs. But they've shown that they're a pretty gritty team. That's kind of their motto, and I would not be surprised to see them do well in the playoffs despite all these injuries to defense. So let's take a look at some of these players. I think Gibbs is going to have the best matchup as far as the Detroit side. Detroit is San Francisco is allowing 24.3 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. Now, San Francisco, despite all their injuries, they're only allowing 14.9 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. They're only allowing 16.7 to wideouts, only 8.1 to slot receivers, and only 9.1 to tight ends. So Detroit, very tough matchup against the San Francisco defense. The only good spot is for Jahmyr Gibbs. On the other side, Detroit's defense is allowing 17.6 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. They've been really good against the run. They're only allowing 18.4 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. This is setting it up to be more of a pass funnel defense, or a pass funnel situation for San Francisco's offense. And on top of that, they have Isaac Guerendo as their running back, and Isaac Guerendo's banged up on top of it. So probably was going to favor the passing game anyways, but now they are incentivized just by this matchup. Detroit giving up 19.9 DraftKings points a game to wideouts, giving up 9.8 to slots. That's not a good matchup for the slot receivers, and giving up 8.3 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. So San Francisco, tough defense facing Detroit, but a lot of these injuries on the Detroit defense makes these matchups look not as bad as they seem on paper. So let's get into this. Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously, like him, he's definitely going to be a potential captain option. It's going to depend on his ownership, really, but he's expensive in the captain at 17.4. Amon-Ra St. Brown does not have a great matchup this week, and he's been getting pretty low volume anyways. Amon-Ra might be a fade in this one at 15.9, at least in his captain salary. We'll go to the flex salary. He's at 10.6, second most expensive guy on the slate, and Amon-Ra is going to be in a difficult matchup. Jared Goff is against this San Francisco defense that I laid out. They're only allowing 14.9 DraftKings points a game, and Goff is really not one of those dynamic, running type of quarterbacks that puts up a lot of fantasy points anyways. But when he gets his passing game going, he can put up some points. We've seen it with 44 DraftKings points a couple weeks ago against Buffalo, 28 versus Chicago, 23 versus Green Bay. Those are pretty tough pass defenses too in there. Jacksonville, 37 DraftKings points against them. And, he's just had several examples of being able to put up points. This will probably be his toughest his toughest matchup to date. Bosa back in. That's going to make it an even tougher situation for Jared Goff. He does pass more, though, without David Montgomery. So when it's just Jahmyr Gibbs as his running back, he's kind of forced to pass the ball a little more than he's used to. Purdy, on the other hand, is against Detroit. He's in a rough situation with the matchup against Detroit. Purdy himself has a decent matchup. 17.6 DraftKings points is what Detroit's given up. That's a good matchup for a quarterback. But his receivers going to have a little bit more difficult matchup. 8.3 to the tight end, 9.8 to the slot receivers, and 19.9 to wideouts. So, slot receivers and tight ends are basically we're looking at George Kittle, and we're looking at Deebo runs 36% of his routes in the slot. Jauan Jennings runs 46% of his routes in the slot. So tough matchup for those guys, but they also do like a decent amount on the outside too. So at least they'll get the softer matchup on the outside. But it's going to be a like a difficult matchup, at least on paper. So we have to see how like all these injuries to Detroit's defense are really going to play out. But I think that San Francisco should have probably the easier of the matchups between San Francisco and Detroit. The thing is, for the passing game of Detroit, at least they don't have to worry about Charvarius Ward on the San Francisco defense. So, it's going to be a lot of injuries to kind of sort through when we're building these lineups. But the total seems to think that the injuries or the matchup isn't significant enough to hold back the points. So we'll see what happens there. Kittle, like I was talking about, has that difficult matchup. Kind of torn on Kittle because without Alex Anzalone in the lineup for the Detroit side, that's a better matchup for Kittle. They're playing worse against Kittle, worse against tight ends, so it's going to be a better situation. And on top of that, the amount that Detroit blitzes is going to be beneficial to Kittle as well. He leads the 49ers, according to Rich Rebar, with a target share of 28.4% on his routes against the blitz. So he does really well against the blitz, and wouldn't be surprised to see Purdy leaning on Kittle a little bit in this matchup. Guerendo is banged up and facing a very difficult run defense. I don't really like Guerendo this week, but it could be one of those situations where the matchup looks bad and then he ends up being a high scorer anyways, which has been a lot of the case this season, honestly. Williams has a difficult matchup. San Francisco's not giving up a lot of big splash plays, and that's going to set up Williams to be in probably the worst of the matchups against this San Francisco defense. So Williams might struggle in this one. Now, with the San Francisco side, Detroit's been giving up a ton to slot receivers. They've been one of the worst defenses in the league versus the slot receivers. So let me check something out here real quick, because it looks like they've tightened it up a little bit. against slot receivers, but let me get a better idea of the points that they've allowed. The last 4 games, yeah, Detroit's only allowing 5 points per game to slots in the last 4 games. So they've been better against them, but I do think that Jennings and Samuel, even though the matchup's a little bit sketchy from the last 4 games, I do think that these guys could take advantage of this matchup. Especially, we haven't seen much out of him recently, and that is setting up for a potential situation where we could see a Jennings busting out another one of those 20+ point games. A lot of criticism of Deebo Samuel recently, with him not really playing well this year, but then he showed up last week and ended up with 25 DraftKings points in a loss to Miami. Let's see. Patrick Taylor would be the backup for Guerrero, but he really did nothing last week against Miami. We got Sam Laporta in his rough matchup. Another matchup where he's facing off against a very tough San Francisco defense against tight ends. They've been good against tight ends traditionally for a few years now, and Sam Laporta has come alive a little bit in the last few weeks, but for the most part, he's been a disappointment this season. But you can see his targets have gone up recently. But Sam Laporta is going to be a tough guy to fit in at 5,800. I like the kickers in this. We can talking about Bates and Moody. Looking at Bates, he's had a bunch of weeks in double-digit points. And San Francisco, Detroit should not have trouble moving the ball in this one. Moody, not so good for Moody. Let's see. Looks like he's missed quite a bit of field goals as well on top of that. So it seems like it's been a rough year for Moody this season. So maybe not so high on Moody as I would be on Bates. Lions D, I think both these defenses, could potentially be in play if this game shoots out a bit and we got more passing volume. Tim Patrick, he's cheap at 4K, especially for his role. He's had a couple double-digit points recently, and it seems like Jared Goff really kind of latched onto him for a couple games there against Green Bay and Buffalo. But then they coasted against Chicago. Didn't really need the passing volume there. But Tim Patrick could definitely do some damage in this game. Ricky Pearsall, I kind of like Ricky Pearsall. With the situation against Detroit, maybe Ricky Pearsall, with that banged up secondary, gets an opportunity to catch a touchdown pass in this one. And Ricky Pearsall had like a 46% snap share last week, so he's getting a decent amount of work in the passing game, or at least opportunity in the passing game. With being on the field. But, I wouldn't be surprised if Ricky Pearsall was able to score a touchdown in this one if the passing volume is increased for Brock Purdy this week against a potent Detroit offense. We got the 49ers D, similar situation, 3,400. I don't hate them, but, I don't really like starting defenses against the Lions. Craig Reynolds, backup running back to Jahmyr Gibbs at this point. Didn't get a ton of work last week, but he's getting usage, so he might be useful at 3K. Use check with the running back situation on the San Francisco side, missing guys, and then on top of that, Guerrero is banged up. We could see Juszczyk get a little bit of work, but he's 2,400. I'd like to see Juszczyk as more of like a You're like a $200 guy. This guy, Vacky, looks like he got 2 targets last week. Not too familiar with him. Then we're looking at some tight ends there. And if I'm scrolling down, I'm not seeing a whole lot that I like as I scroll down here. And so not a lot to dumpster dive with, but let's build the lineup and let's see what kind of situation we can build here. As far as the outcome, I think this is a game that could go either way. I think San Francisco is probably going to treat this like their Super Bowl. It's their last like huge game ag- after being eliminated from the playoffs, and now they're facing off against a like a potential Super Bowl contender. So I think San Francisco is going to take this game very seriously, and they're going to try to use it to make a statement on the way out for their season. So they're playing at home on top of that. So, would not be surprised to see San Francisco pull this game off. So let's build for Detroit though, because Detroit, I think a lot of people are going to be on Detroit. So let's go with Gibbs in the captain. I think a lot of people are going to want Gibbs in the captain. If I was doing that, I'd probably go with the passing game of San Francisco, just knowing the injury situation to the running backs. So if I go that way, I'm going Purdy. Probably going with Jennings as my favorite receiver. Um, I might look to go Kittle as well. So if I go Kittle as well, that's going to leave me with 3K per guy remaining. So I'm going to scroll down to the value section here. 49ers D. This rookie Pearsall. I'm going to put Pearsall in there. I'm going to put Pearsall in there as opposed to one of these guys. I'm going to put maybe Pearsall instead of. Let's go Pearsall instead of Jennings in this one. That's going to leave us with 5,300. That way I can put in Bates. You get Bates in there. Maybe they're able to get to the red zone but struggle a little bit. And that's going to leave us with 5,600. If I have 5,600, that leaves me with options like Moody, Lions D, Tim Patrick, 49ers D. A lot of good options in that range, especially for a pretty solid lineup that includes Gibbs and the captain. If we wanted to go with a cheaper captain, let's go with a San Francisco wins type of build in this one. And I think in San Francisco wins, I think it's got to involve Jennings or Kittle or someone having a big game. Let's go with Jennings, though, because he's cheap. And let's put Purdy in there. Let's stick with Gibbs. I think Gibbs is going to get used no matter what. I think if San Francisco wins, let's get Guerrero in there because they're going to want to get that running game going. And let's put the kicker in this one too for Detroit. They're having trouble scoring when they get to the red zone, so they're having to do a lot of kicks. And that's going to leave us with perfect spot for Ricky Pearsall in this one as well. Gives another passing weapon to Brock Purdy. You could use the 49ers defense. I think that makes sense in a build like this too. And those would really be the only couple of options that I would head towards in a build like this, where we're going for more of a San Francisco win. If you wanted to play against the matchups, and say that maybe Williams has a big game. If we throw Williams in here, Gibbs, I think Gibbs is a must for any lineup. Let's put Goff in this one. And on the San Francisco side, let's go with Jennings. And then let's scroll down here. And maybe we get, since we got Goff in here, let's put Patrick in. Leaves us with 4,800, and we get Moody in this lineup. So that'd give us Jennings and Moody, which would explain why like they're having a little bit more trouble, putting up points is they're relying more on field goals, and Jennings is having some success. Meanwhile, on the other side, Goff is connecting with Williams. Gibbs is racking up his points, and Patrick is kind of the other guy that Detroit is throwing to there. So interesting, like way to go there with the passing game. I do think that my favorite captains are probably going to be guys like Gibbs is going to be the obvious one, but he's going to be a solid captain. But depending on the ownership, we could go like a guy like Kittle. We could go Samuel if he's forgotten about. He showed some life last week. My favorite one's going to be Jennings. I'm just hoping his ownership is low. But Jennings would be a guy that I would love to start in this one. All those routes he's running in the slot and then facing off against that Detroit slot defense. I think all that stuff would be just a solid matchup for him. And that's it for now, guys. Hit that subscribe button. Give me the 30 hit that like button. Give me the 30 likes so I can put the favorite plays in the comment section later on. And make sure to subscribe to the channel. Like I said, I'm going for 1,500 subscribers. Was hoping to get there before the end of Monday, but I need about 50 left. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do that. And let's get some more off the board picks for this week. I do like Ricky Pearsall. I'm putting up a underdog pick'em contest. If you use the promo code SEEK on Underdog, you can get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 for new depositors. I do these pick'em videos for every slate and every single game, and I have Ricky Pearsall in my recent one, and he juices up our. I got 5 picks in that one. He juices it up to 53 times your money if it hits. So pretty good return on that if Ricky Pearsall can hit for us, and our other picks in that pick'em hit as well. But Underdog is the place. You can check out my video on my short feed, and also use the promo code SEEK, SEEK, for 50% deposit bonus up, or for a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. All right, guys, that's it for this week, and I will see you later on.